you want to improve your life, you want to be more successful, wealthier, healthier, happier, well, you can if you believe in yourself and if you know the secret. It's even easier than you thought it is. You see, you don't have to take a giant leap. You don't have to swing for the fences. You don't have to do anything heroic. If you simply focus on getting 1% better every single day, you will be surprised at how quickly you can achieve your dreams. I'm sure you've seen this idea before. Improve 1% every day is all over the self-improvement space. Unfortunately, this idea is complete, and in this video, you'll discover why. Stick around to see why this idea isn't just wrong, but actually harmful. And in fact, if you believe that this is how growth and the path to success looks like, you are missing out on one of the fastest and easiest ways to grow and improve your life quality. So to get started, why is this idea nonsense? Improving 1% a day sounds reasonable, sounds like, hey, improve in small steps, right? But what does it actually look like? Let's start with a really simple example to illustrate. Let's say you go to the gym and currently you can bench press 40 kilograms. So improve 1% a day means tomorrow you'll bench press 40.4 kilograms. Seems pretty reasonable, right? And surely if you want to get stronger, adding a little bit of weight every day is probably a way to do it. But if you actually manage to improve 1% a day, guess how much you'd be bench pressing after just 1 year of training? I don't know. The answer is 1,511 kilograms, which by the way is about 4 times the current world record for the bench press. Now you don't need me to tell you that this is not going to happen. And hey, why stop at 1 year? What if you train every day for 10 years? Guess how much you'd be lifting then? I don't know. The answer is 237 trillion tons. What does that mean? If you rack a Mount Everest to each side of your barbell, you're still not lifting enough.
But Shane, you're just cherry picking one example where it doesn't work.
The reason I'm using this simple example is because it clearly illustrates how ridiculous the premise of compounding improvements like this is. What we're looking at here is compound growth. So you improve 1% today and then tomorrow you improve 1% on what you already improved on. This compounds and it gets ridiculous. If we graph it out, we get an exponential curve like this, which you've maybe seen in self-help motivational videos, and this graph is a lie. No kind of personal growth or learning or skill development follows a curve like this. And it doesn't matter what you apply it to. 1% a day means a 37x improvement in 1 year. What area of life can you get this kind of growth in? Are you going to go from earning $10 an hour today to earning $370 an hour in just 1 year? Even if you make amazing progress in your career or in your own business, that's very unlikely to happen. Or let's say social life. Maybe currently you struggle to get even 1 date a week. Are you going to go from that to getting 5 dates every single day in just 1 year? Or investing, are you going to start with $100 and turn that into $3,778 in just 1 year? And by the way, into over $5 million in just 3 years? This kind of growth simply doesn't happen. And if it does, it only happens in very short bursts and it's completely unsustainable. So if you believe that you can improve 1% a day, 1, you don't understand compounding effects and how powerful they are. And 2, you probably have wrong expectations.
But Shane, what if it's not meant like that? Maybe it's supposed to be the same amount of improvement every day, like linear?
So okay, if we take the exponential factor out of it, if you try to grow linearly, that still means you're increasing by 365% every year, right? This is still unlikely. This graph too is a lie. It would mean going from 40 kilogram bench press to 146 kilogram bench press in 1 year. And that too is basically just not going to happen. But also using percentage growth as a way to express linear growth just doesn't make any sense at all.
But Shane, now you're just being a hater. This is meant to be a motivating message to inspire people to do something.
Well, if this is meant to be motivating, it doesn't do the exact opposite, because it gives you a certain expectation of how you will improve over time. You think you're going to get this improvement or this improvement, and you get neither. Won't that make you feel like you're doing something wrong, or you're too slow, or you're a loser, and then you give up? Because your actual progress doesn't keep pace with anything like 1% a day? So how is that useful?
You're taking this way too literally, okay? They're just saying make a bit of progress every day, and that's a good thing. Why are you being like this?
Okay, so this brings us to the actual heart of the matter. Because if you understand how actual growth works, you can benefit way more than if you're kind of vaguely motivated to just do a little bit every day. In fact, on some things, doing a little bit every day is a total waste of time. So here's what skill improvement actually looks like when we put it on a graph. It is a logarithmic curve, but it slopes the other way, which is to say that in the beginning, you'll make gains very quickly. You go from complete newbie to a decent level of competence within maybe a few hundred hours, maybe even a few dozen hours of practicing and learning about a new skill. It is quick to run up that initial steep part of the curve. And the better you get, the deeper your expertise, the greater your mastery, the more you get into the zone of diminishing returns, which means you're putting in more and more work to get fewer and fewer incremental gains. So if you take the gym example, in your first year working out, you might double your bench press. You basically go from very weak to kind of above average. But what happens after 5 years, after 10 years of training? At that point, you might be doing a 10-month cycle to try and add 5 kilograms to your bench press. So you're doing loads of work for tiny gains. And the same is true in all areas of skill growth, of knowledge growth, of expertise. Now here's why this matters. Realizing that this is how skill growth actually happens means that you can be deliberate about deciding whether something is a marathon or a sprint. Here's why it's useful to distinguish between a marathon and a sprint. A marathon is when you want to go all the way to the far end of mastery in a skill. Whereas a sprint is saying, hey, I'm just going to run up the steep part of the curve here, and then that's good enough. When you're doing the marathon thing, then you are indeed working on and grinding away at something every single day. You show up every day, you keep putting in the work to keep learning, to keep growing, and to grind your way up that curve. And this is great. This is your craft. This is the thing that you dedicate yourself to. And it's great to have such a thing in your life. When I was much younger, for me, that was martial arts. For about 10 years of my life, I was completely dedicated to this long journey up the mastery curve in martial arts. That was my priority. That's what I showed up to do every single day, and everything else in my life was secondary. And then later in life, my one priority, my one skill to master was entrepreneurship. That's what I was dedicated to improving on every single day. But, and this is the important part, at the same time, while I was pursuing the long journey of mastery in entrepreneurship, I was running up the steep part of the skill curve on countless other things in parallel. For example, at one point I got really interested in nutrition, and in just the span of a few months, I devoured a whole bunch of books on the topic. So I spent maybe a total of 200 hours of my time learning this topic, and I went from knowing virtually nothing to having a decent knowledge base on healthy nutrition and how to feed myself. Now, as a result of that, I cleaned up my diet massively, and I got benefits that stay with me to this day. For example, clearing up my acne. But the key part here is that this is not an ongoing journey of mastery. I was doing this while I was grinding away at my entrepreneurship skill. I did this sprint of a few months, and I benefited from it from then on. Another example is my dating life. For a long time, I was the forever alone type of guy. At some point, I wanted to solve that problem, and I spent some time figuring out how this whole dating game works and actively practicing, basically going out specifically to talk to women and specifically to work on my game. I spent some time, part-time, next to my entrepreneurship for about 18 months on that. And that was enough for me to basically solve my dating problems and solve my confidence problems in relation to that topic and then move on. But note that this was a limited time where I was focusing on this, and I didn't have to make it my whole identity. I didn't have to turn into a pickup artist or do this full time. And I have no interest in becoming, the world leading master in picking up women or something like that. So again, this is a limited time sprint that gave me a significant improvement in life quality without being a show up every day, try to improve 1% every day kind of pursuit. And finally, perhaps the most powerful example of this is money. Most people absolutely suck with money. You can learn the basics of how to be smart with your money, of how to set a budget, of how to invest, of how to play the long game with money in a matter of maybe 2 weeks. If you spend 2 weeks learning a little bit about this every day, maybe read 1 or 2 books about it, and hey, go through our free class on the topic, you can completely change your financial destiny. By doing just one short sprint up the steep part of the money game curve, you can gain all the knowledge you need and put in place and automate all the systems you need to 10 years from now be better off than 90% of people with the same starting conditions as you. This is probably the highest leverage thing where it's worth sprinting up the steep part of the curve. And to be clear, if you do this for 2 weeks, you will not be qualified to be a hedge fund manager. You will not be a world-leading expert in the economy or in money or in investing or anything like that. But that's the point. You don't have to run up the entirety of the curve of mastery. You don't have to pursue this for a lifetime. You can do this as a sprint and totally change your life. I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dating coach, and I'm not a financial advisor. But I got my shit together in all of these areas of life in ways that have benefited me ever since, and each of them was only a sprint. So here's the key takeaway. Actual skill growth looks like this. And there should be one thing in your life where you're pursuing mastery, where you're grinding out those incremental returns, showing up every day, getting better and better. But at the same time, you can dramatically and rapidly improve your life quality by sprinting up the steep part of the curve on multiple things and implementing and benefiting along the way without having to do loads and loads of things every single day. In fact, it will be completely unsustainable to think, okay, I want to get my social life, my finances, my health, nutrition, fitness, sleep, meditation, etc., all of these things, and all of them I have to somehow improve 1% every day. Is completely unsustainable. This is a great way to experience just like total self-improvement overwhelm. So this is why this whole idea is basically nonsense. And what I want you to take away from this is be deliberate about what is your marathon and then add sprints to rapidly improve your life quality. And by the way, if you want to learn how to play the money game, because like I mentioned, that's the highest leverage, shortest sprint thing you can do, we have a completely free class that teaches you absolutely everything you need to know to make this happen. And yes, it is completely free and there is no catch. The link is in the description. Now, having said all that, there's one more important thing. This kind of growth, like we've said, is not going to happen. Except there are rare instances where you can get exponential or something like exponential growth. And as we've seen, the power of compounding is immense. So whenever you have an opportunity to create this kind of growth in your life, it's one of the best things you can do. Unfortunately, even this kind of growth does not look like 1% every day. It is more complicated than that, but it is possible. And when you understand how it works, it can change your life. And we'll talk about how it works in the next video. You want to watch the next video?